Hello, you're watching News Mongolian MNB World. I'm your host, Untitled Chapter. Our top stories: proposal submitted to extend the COVID-19 law for 6 more months. Made in Mongolia 2021 trade fair takes place. E.Tsendbaatar will have his debut fight in professional boxing this Friday against Aslan Kabisov of Russia. For other news, stay tuned. The United Nations Development Programme brought a ferocious talking dinosaur from Mongolia all the way to the United Nations headquarters to urge more climate action from global leaders in a short film launched as the centerpiece of the global Don't Choose Extinction campaign. The Mongolian version of the film features the voice of Mongolian actress Untitled and puts a spotlight on the climate crisis.
Bursting into the iconic General Assembly Hall, famous for history-making speeches by leaders from around the world, the imposing dinosaur tells an audience of shocked and bewildered diplomats and dignitaries it's time humans stop making excuses and start making changes to address the climate crisis.
At least we had an asteroid. What's your excuse? You're headed for a climate disaster, and yet every year governments spend hundreds of billions of public funds on fossil fuel subsidies. Imagine if we had spent hundreds of billions per year subsidizing giant meteors. That's what you're doing right now. Think of all the other things you could do with that money.
The UNDP's Don't Choose Extinction campaign and film shine a spotlight on fossil fuel subsidies and how they are canceling out significant progress toward ending climate change and are driving inequality. UNDP research released as part of the campaign shows that the world spends an astounding $423 billion annually to subsidize fossil fuels for consumers, including oil, electricity generated by the burning of other fossil fuels, gas and coal. This could cover the cost of COVID-19 vaccinations for every person in the world, or pay for 3 times the annual amount needed to eradicate extreme poverty around the globe. Mongolia is one of the countries most vulnerable to climate change, as in the last 70 years, annual air temperature has increased by about 2.4 degrees Celsius, more than double the global average. Ongoing climate warming is causing drought, extreme weather hazards, frequent wildfires, permafrost loss, and water shortages in the country. Such negative impacts pose growing challenges and risks to rural livelihoods, which in turn forces internal migration to urban centers. Intensive urbanization has challenges of its own, such as a critical level of air and environmental pollution, among others. Under the Don't Choose Extinction campaign, UNDP Mongolia calls for increased investment in renewable energy solutions. This is first ever film to be made inside the UN General Assembly using computer-generated imagery.
The Ministry of Health reported that in the past 24 hours, 240 new COVID-19 cases were confirmed, 4 were imported cases. In the past 24 hours, 240 new cases were confirmed and unfortunately 2 men died of COVID-19 complications. Out of the new cases, 169 were confirmed in Ulaanbaatar and 67 in the rural provinces. The remaining 4 were imported cases. At hospitals nationwide, 2,172 COVID-19 patients are being treated. Out of them, 742 show mild symptoms of illness and 33 are in critical condition. Additionally, about 4,000 patients are being treated at home under supervision. As of now, 66.4% of the population has had 2 doses of a COVID-19 vaccine and 26.5% of the population has received the booster shot so far. As the Omicron variant is spreading in many countries, state authorities have expressed concern about people dismissing the new variant as mild. Currently, Mongolia has no cases of the Omicron variant recorded. In hopes of preventing the variant's arrival, the Mongolian People's Party caucus and parliament has submitted a proposal to extend the law on the prevention, combat and reduction of the social and economic impacts of COVID-19 for 6 more months. We have details in the following report.
Toktok Surung, the head of the Mongolian People's Party Parliamentary Caucus, introduced his party's position on the matter.
During today's meeting of the caucus, we decided to support the extension of the law on the prevention, combat and reduction of the social and economic impacts of COVID-19 by 6 months. The pandemic continues and infections have not yet decreased in some parts of the world. The Mongolian border was closed, causing economic hardship. Therefore, it was decided that the law should be extended until July 1st, 2022.
He highlighted the issue of electricity and heating subsidies and noted that Irtind Mining Corporation was covering the costs of electricity and heating bills as part of its social responsibility activities. He added that electricity and heating subsidies will end in 2022. Toktok added that if the law expires before the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic is over, it will be difficult to impose measures such as quarantine and isolation. Authorities forecast that land borders can be safely reopened by March 2022 at the earliest. There has been no talk of extending the law beyond the 6 months proposed by the MPP. There are 3 provisions in the law that have drawn a lot of public criticism, particularly those addressing civil service appointments, budget issues, and direct procurement contracts for some medical equipment. There have been talks of extending provisions related to mortgage loans. MP Toktok noted that if the law is extended, mortgage-related provisions could also be extended and added that the final decision regarding the extension will be made by Parliament.
Thank you for staying tuned with us. Now let's look at Mongolia's current affairs.
This year marks the 100th anniversary of the development of cooperatives in Mongolia. To mark the anniversary, the Ministry of Food, Agriculture and Light Industry, Agency for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, and the Mongolian National Cooperative Association organized the Made in Mongolia 2021 trade fair to support cooperatives and small and medium-sized enterprises. Around 140 individuals and companies and around 30 cooperatives promoted and sold their products to the public. The exhibitors made 120 million Mongolian tugruks in sales during the 3-day trade fair. A 2022 to 2024 program for cooperation between the Ministry of Education and Science of Mongolia and the Ministry of Science and Higher Education of the Russian Federation has been approved. The program will focus on developing educational and scientific relations and cooperation between Mongolia and Russia, increasing student exchanges, and advancing direct relations between the countries' scientific organizations. The cooperation agreement was signed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Mongolia, Batsitsik, and the Ministry of Science and Higher Education of the Russian Federation, Valery Falko, during the official visit of President of Mongolia, Khurelsukh, to the Russian Federation. During Mongolian President Khurelsukh's official visit to Russia, Ministry of Foreign Affairs Batsitsik and Deputy Minister of Transport of the Russian Federation Vladimir Tokarev signed a protocol on amendments to the August 10, 1994 agreement between the Government of Mongolia and the Government of the Russian Federation on border checkpoints and the relaxed regime at the Mongolian-Russian border. Under the protocol, the sides upgraded the status of the Borsho Handrat and Hankhmond checkpoints. The sides also agreed to close 13 checkpoints. The checkpoints selected for closure have temporary or seasonal operation, lack facilities for border inspection, are not connected to an electricity grid, or have been inactive in recent years. 16 checkpoints will remain open. The government of Mongolia has begun the expansion and upgrading of primary checkpoints. Development work is underway at the Altanbolok, Borsho, and Suhuator checkpoints. The Hankh, Tsaganor, and Ulkhang checkpoints have been included in plans for future border checkpoint development.
And now let's check on the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank.
The winners of the National Premier League organized by the Mongolian Volleyball Association have been announced. The Nature Med Noyung team of the Nature Med Rehabilitation Center won the men's league title. In the women's category, Hilchin team of the General Border Protection Agency became the women's champion. In the men's category, Hasso Megawatt team took second place, Irchim team took third place, Hobie's team took second place, and Inagure team took third place in the women's event. Sasur Borum of Hilchim was named the best defender in the men's category, and Boinjarot of Hasso Megawatt was named the best in the men's category. Inhuslu of Inagure and Batsur of Irchim were named best blockers in the women's and men's category respectively. Tumtsitik of Inagure and Bairsach of Hasso Megawatt were named best setters in the men's and women's category respectively. The regular meeting of the Mongolian National Olympic Committee was scheduled for November 30th this year. However, the session was postponed due to the inability of the Independent Election Commission to continue its work during the session. Therefore, today's meeting of all members of the Mongolian National Olympic Committee was held both at headquarters and in an electronic format, and it was decided to hold the Olympic Conference on March 28, 2022. According to Article 14.2 of the Charter of the Mongolian National Olympic Committee, the date of the meeting of the Mongolian National Olympic Committee shall be announced by the members' meeting at least 3 months in advance. The new governing body of the Mongolian National Olympic Committee will be elected on March 28th. E.Tsendbaatar, a World Championship bronze medalist and honored athlete of Mongolia, will fight against Aslan Kabisov of Russia in professional boxing in Moscow, Russia on December 24th. This is his first fight in professional boxing, and it was supposed to take place on the 17th of this month, but it was postponed. E.Tsendbaatar is currently training in Moscow under the guidance of a professional coach. Aslan Kabisov appeared in the professional ring 7 times and has a 100% record. E.Tsendbaatar decided to switch to professional boxing due to being cut from the national boxing team earlier this year.
Here is the weather forecast for major cities around the world. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for staying with us on News Mongolia. See you tomorrow with more stories and updates. Have a great evening. Goodbye.